Have you ever faced a tough decision and wished you had a wise mentor to guide you? What if I told you that a practical, time-tested mentor has been sitting on shelves and in hearts for thousands of years, ready to shape how you make choices, relate to others, and grow personally? The Book of Proverbs isn't only ancient literature. It's a living resource of straightforward, usable wisdom that speaks to money, work, relationships, speech, and daily habits. In this video, we'll learn 3 clear, easy-to-use study methods that make Proverbs come alive. A theme-based approach for building a personal reference, a character study for self-awareness and relationships, and a contrast and compare method for practical decision-making. Each method will include study tips and quick exercises you can do in 15 minutes or less. Imagine a consistent pair of characters, a calm teacher and a curious student, moving through the scenes while key verses are highlighted. The tone stays inviting, the pace remains gentle and reflective. We'll use prompts, journal templates, and a downloadable study guide mentioned in the description to help you practice. By the end of this tutorial, you'll have concrete steps. 1 method to try first, a simple exercise to practice today, and a short-term plan to turn study into habit. Ready? Let's open Proverbs with curiosity and the intention to build wisdom for everyday life. Let's start with the theme-based approach. Instead of reading Proverbs straight through, choose topics that matter to you now: communication, decision-making, work ethic, generosity, or self-control, and gather verses that speak directly to those themes. How to do it? Pick a theme. Write it at the top of a page or a digital note. Search Proverbs by chapter headings, keyword searches, or a quick skim for any verse that touches that theme. Record each verse with a short note, what it means, an example of it in action, and a practical takeaway. Example walkthrough, wise communication. Collect verses. Proverbs 15 verse 1, a gentle answer turns away wrath. Proverbs 18 verse 21, the tongue can bring death or life. Proverbs 25 verse 11, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold. For each verse, jot an application, pause before replying to criticism, or choose timing when giving feedback. Create a quick index. Under communication, list verse references, short summaries, and a 1-line action to try that week. Keep 2 sections, one lists verses, the other holds a simple action. For example, wait 10 seconds before responding in anger. Track speaking, listening, and timing. Try this short exercise. Pick 3 areas where you need wisdom. Spend 15 minutes finding 5 proverbs for each theme. At the end of the week, review your notes and choose 1 small action inspired by a verse. The theme-based method turns scattered verses into a practical, personalized manual you can flip to when life asks for wisdom. Next, the character study. Proverbs paints vivid character types: wise, foolish, diligent, lazy, proud, humble. And these descriptions help us see patterns in ourselves and others. How to create a character profile. Choose a character to study, like wise person. Collect descriptive verses. For wisdom, include Proverbs 11:14, many advisors for sound counsel. Proverbs 13:10, pride leads to strife. Proverbs 15:28, the heart of the righteous meditates before answering. Write a short profile, key traits, typical actions, triggers, and what healthy alternatives look like. Sample profiles. The wise person listens first, seeks counsel, controls temper, learns from correction. Daily habit. Ask 1 clarifying question before giving advice. The fool speaks without thinking, repeats mistakes, avoids counsel. Practical red flag. Defensiveness when corrected. Reflection prompts. Which traits do I already show? Which do I avoid confronting? How do these traits show up at work, in friendships, or at home? Try role play. Animate your characters responding to a scenario. How the wise person pauses, the fool reacts, and narrate the internal cues that lead to each response. A hands-on exercise. Pick one trait to develop over 14 days. Each day, read a verse about that trait. Journal a brief example of where you acted with or without that quality, and set a micro goal, e.g., ask one coworker for input before deciding. Character study deepens self-awareness and makes change intentional rather than accidental. The contrast and compare method uses Proverbs' repeated opposites to highlight patterns. The book sets pairs: wise versus foolish, diligent versus lazy, humble versus proud, so we can see consequences laid out as options. Start by making 2 columns in your journal: leads to blessing and leads to trouble. As you read, place behaviors and outcomes into each column. Over time, you'll spot strong trends. What choices commonly lead to peace, prosperity, and healthy relationships, and which lead to conflict, loss, or regret? Examples: blessing, generosity, timely speech, humility, seeking counsel. Trouble, pride, harsh words, laziness, ignoring wise counsel. Illustrative verse: Proverbs 27:14, "The poorly timed blessing becomes a curse," teaches how context and timing flip an action's outcome. Another pair: Proverbs 12:24 praises the diligent worker. Proverbs 21:25 warns that too much sloth brings want. Decision flow application. When faced with a choice, ask 2 quick questions. Does this align with blessing patterns? Does it avoid the trouble patterns? If yes, move forward. If not, rethink. Follow this flow. Choice. Check columns, choose action. Try a short practice. List a current decision, sort possible actions into the 2 columns, and pick the option that mirrors the patterns of wisdom. This method makes choices clearer by showing long-term tendencies rather than isolated rules. Wisdom needs application. These methods are only valuable if they shape daily habits, conversations, and decisions. Here are practical steps to build that bridge between study and life. Weekly focus. Choose one verse each week to live out. Put it on your phone lock screen, tape it to your mirror, or write it on a card you carry. Example: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Use it as a lens for decision moments. Daily micro practices. Morning: read one verse and write one line about how you'll apply it that day. Midday: set a 1-minute reminder to pause and recall the verse when stressed. Evening: jot a short note in a wisdom journal about where the verse showed up. Accountability formats. Pair with a friend, join a small group, or use a digital study buddy. Weekly check-ins can be 5 minutes. Share a verse, 1 insight, 1 action. Use tech. Create a shared note, set reminders, or use a habit app to track tiny wins. Real-life example. If you apply control your temper at work, you might pause before replying to a tense email. Choose a calm tone, and later note in your journal how that choice altered the outcome. Recording these moments builds convincing evidence that the wisdom works. Also, celebrate small wins. Wisdom changes slowly. Tracking it shows momentum. Use the downloadable study guide to keep templates for themes, characters, and contrast lists, making practice simple and repeatable. The Book of Proverbs isn't a checklist of perfection. It's a wise companion for everyday life. Each verse you learn and practice becomes a tool you can use when decisions get messy or emotions run high. You now have 3 practical methods: theme-based study for personal reference, character study for self-awareness and relationships, and contrast and compare for clearer decision-making. Next steps: pick one method to try this week, choose a theme or character to study, and spend 15 minutes collecting verses. Put one verse into practice daily and share what you learn with one person. Small, consistent steps add up into real change. Close with this simple challenge. Choose one verse now, write it down, and practice it for the next 7 days. Let Proverbs be a steady guide, not a burden, but a friend teaching you how to live wisely. Start today Your future self will thank you for the choices you make now.